From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday, August 28th, led the nation in observing National Heroes Day in a program at the Libingan ng mga Bayani, or in English, Heroes Cemetery in Taguig City, with the theme Karangalan, Katungkulan, Kabayanihan, or in English, Honor, Obligation, Heroism. The National Heroes Day celebration is spearheaded by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or NHCP. Pursuant to Administrative Code of 1987, amended by Republic Act or RA number 9492, the commemoration states that National Heroes Day will be celebrated each year on the last Monday of August. The celebration gives Filipinos the opportunity to recognize the sacrifices of Filipino heroes and honor their bravery. Let's listen to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. at the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City.
We commemorate today National Heroes Day, and as we do so, let us collectively recall the heroic deeds of those who have fought for our honor and our dignity as a blossoming nation throughout the centuries. From the warriors of old, revolutionary fighters, visionary thinkers, war veterans, and the countless patriots who have helped shape our country into what it is and what we are today, free, independent, and self-determined. To them, we are eternally grateful. May the stories of their courage and wisdom continue to be told and imparted to our youth, that they might be inspired and to strengthen their identity and cohesion of our nation for not today alone, but for centuries to come. In our journey forward as a nation, we must break free from the notion that heroes are only those who have earned a place in the national pantheon, immortalized in monuments, or those whose names are inscribed in streets or whose lives are chronicled in biographies. Like the unknown soldier buried in this hallowed ground, unnamed and unheralded heroes too deserve their due recognition. While the memories of our heroes of storied past will never fade, new ones continue to emerge. They are here amongst us in the daily bustle of modern-day society, in our communities, in our own families and inner circles. In their own ways, more often than not in less dramatic, less tragic circumstances, their selfless deeds and sacrifices have the same ability to inspire and to create a possible ripple effect in society. It can be said that most heroes are ordinary men and women, but which faced with the challenges of life, faced with the challenges to their lives, to their country, to their families, to their community, and to their beliefs, it is them who rise up and we show us the act of heroism that is extraordinary. All of us can be heroes, one way or another. We unleash the hero in us when we act genuinely for the good of another, impelled by causes and motives greater, more noble than mere personal interest or vainglory. Heroism is not only to be found in the grand battles and struggles, it also resides in the simplest acts of kindness, of empathy, solidarity that not only move hearts, but also influence minds and actions and change lives for the better. We need the unfading memories and shining examples of our heroes, not only to continually remind us of the noble causes that have led them to their heroic deeds. We also draw inspiration from them for our self-improvement and to possibly develop our own heroic potential. So let us always tell the tales of the heroic deeds of our kababayans, whether they are in the country or they are in the country or outside in the rest of the world. The tale might be the electric lineman from Bacolod City, braving the typhoon Egay floods and risking his life to repair broken electrical wires to avert the greater danger to the neighborhood. It may be the Filipino farmer who prevailed over harsh weather and economic conditions to ensure a successful harvest that he might feed his countrymen. What to him was mere personal triumph was a crucial fragment of a greater accomplishment, a high level of production of food, which contributes to our goal of food sufficiency for our people, a grand and as noble a aspiration as could be had. There is also, of course, the Filipino teacher, who, in spite of a meager pay, strives not only to be a good educator to our youth, but a patient and persevering servant of government and of the people in many various activities outside of their strict job description. Elsewhere in the world, there is a story of Filipino teachers who lent a hand to an elderly neighbor in need during these terrible wildfires that we are witnessing. We can never disregard the countless tales of our workforce who have bounced back from the agonizing challenges of the pandemic to drive our nation's ongoing economic recovery. These include, of course, our overseas Filipino workers, whose remittances form a strong pillar of our country's economy. We must mention a dear and departed friend who we can only describe as well as a hero, and that is our good friend who we just lost, Secretary Toots Ople. And she is a perfect example of what true heroism can be. But she tirelessly dedicated the better part of her life to promote the welfare of our modern-day heroes. Let not our recognition just be a vacuous expression of consolation for noble efforts. We must give a genuine appreciation and a promise for all of us to do better, to emulate those heroes who we so admire and so honor. We shall not take their heroism for granted. We will not spare ourselves of the moral duty to perpetuate the ideals that they have fought for and to rectify the unsafe, inequitable, or exceptionally difficult conditions that necessitated their selfless needs. Failing in our duty, their sacrifices would have been all in vain. Collectively, their heroic acts, small or large, go a long way and make our country and the world a better place. To them, we once again earnestly dedicate this special day.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. led the necrological service for the late Department of Migrant Workers or DMW Secretary Susan Toots Ople in Malacañang Palace in Manila on Monday morning. Ople's remains will leave the palace at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and will be transferred to the DMW office in Mandaluyong City. Viewing will be open to the public from 5 in the afternoon onwards. In his speech, President Marcos honored Secretary Ople, which he considers one of his closest friends. Let's listen to a portion of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s speech at the necrological service for the late DMW Secretary Toots Ople in Malacañang Palace.
To the family and friends, the colleagues of Toots in the cabinet, all of us who had worked with her, everyone here who are here because Toots always held a special place in their hearts. We are told when you are an official that you cannot show emotion, that you must be stoic, and you must keep yourself to yourself. And if I do shed a tear, It is because it is such a sad day to know. It is such a sad bit of knowledge to know that Toots will not be here anymore. And what a big gap she will leave, not only to her friends, not only to her family, but to the millions of those who she took care of, who she loved, and who she worked for tirelessly and endlessly. And I speak endlessly because that is exactly what happened. And I know that this all came from her heart. This all came from the compassion and the passion that she brought to her work. And this, as I said, is a rare quality, a rare combination. Kaya't hindi ko talaga maisip, parang hindi ako makaramdam, hindi ko ma-imagine na ang buhay na wala si Toots actually, because she occupied such an important part of my life as a friend and as a colleague. And I have to say that I cannot choose which was the better relationship. They were equally wonderful. The professional relationship that we had and the friendship that we had is something that I will not find in many people in my lifetime. So you will understand my emotion. You will understand the great sense of loss that we are feeling. And if I shed a tear, because I feel sorry, I do not feel sorry for Toots. Because after her last, her heart beat its last. Her soul went immediately to heaven. And for that, I have no doubt. I feel sorry for us, her friends, her family, because we've lost a wonderful person, a wonderful friend. I feel sorry for the Filipinos who are living and working abroad, because they have lost the best champion that they ever had in the history of overseas workers for Filipinos. And that is why I shed a tear, and that is why I feel sorry for all of us. That's why I think that we should honor Toots and remember what is it that she worked all her life for. What was the most important thing to her? We all know what that is. We must continue that work. We must honor her memory. We must honor the work that she did before. And so that is a very high standard that Toots set for the rest of us. So let us not let her down. I hope I never let her down when she was alive. I fully do not intend to let her down now that she's gone. I will always remember her with great fondness and affection and great respect. Toots, I don't know how many years God will give me in this life, but for the rest of that life, I can confidently say Toots will always be one of the best people I have ever known. Thank you.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Marcos Jr. on Tuesday convened various concerned government agencies and sectors to discuss updates on the government's initiatives to ensure rice supply as well as to regulate its price. The Department of Agriculture, or DA, presented data on the country's most recent rice outlook, noting that there is enough rice supply in the country as of date. President Marcos, however, expressed concern over the price of rice. Possible reasons why prices have increased are cases of hoarding, the effects of consecutive typhoons over the past month, which includes typhoons Egay and Falcon, in severely affected areas and/or rice deficit regions, and prices posed by middlemen. The chief executive also directed concerned agencies to utilize the available legal tools in controlling the price of rice and make this affordable especially to poor households, as well as ensure other support mechanisms for farmers and traders alike should legal measures be invoked by the government in controlling the price of rice. President Marcos has called on the Bureau of Customs, or BOC, in coordination with the DA, to study possibilities of donating BOC-seized rice to the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD. The President also ordered the BOC to continue its warehouse raids to quell hoarders and illegal importers of rice.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines and the United Kingdom are eyeing to beef up their cooperation in key areas such as trade, security and defense, renewable energy shift, and climate change action. This developed after President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday welcomed British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly at Malacañang Palace in Manila. Cleverly said he is optimistic that British firms would put up businesses in the Philippines with the help of UK Export Finance, or UKEF. UKEF, the UK's export credit agency, helps British companies to win export contracts by providing attractive financing terms to their buyers, fulfill contracts by supporting working capital loans, and get paid by insuring against buyer default. Data from the British Embassy showed that the two-way trade between the UK and the Philippines increased by 26% on an annual basis to 2.4 billion British pounds in 2022, with Philippine exports to UK reaching 1.2 billion British pounds. Cleverly and Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA Secretary Enrique Manalo, also formally signed on Tuesday the joint statement of intent to develop the framework agreement, which will define the scope of the two states' bilateral cooperation under the Philippines-UK Enhanced Partnership. The partnership was launched on December of 2021 to strengthen UK-Philippines collaboration in key areas including defense, climate and environment, trade, maritime security and foreign policy, among others. Apart from boosting cooperation, the two foreign secretaries discussed pressing and evolving regional and international issues of mutual concern during a bilateral meeting at the Diamond Hotel in Manila. Before meeting Manalo, Cleverly visited the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, to discuss cooperation on maritime security, counterterrorism, and environmental protection. The UK was among the foreign governments that expressed serious concern over the August 5th water cannoning incident involving the Chinese Coast Guard while a Philippine boat was en route to resupply the troops stationed at the BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin. President Marcos said he is open to the idea of forging alliances and partnerships with the UK when it comes to security and defense. Cleverly said there are lots of opportunities for the two nations to create a positive bilateral relationship and take advantage of huge growth potential for potential partnerships. Cleverly said the Philippines and the UK may also strengthen their cooperation to mitigate the impacts of climate change as well as to promote the use of renewable energy.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday paid tribute to veteran broadcaster and host Mike Enriquez, who passed away on Tuesday, commending the late newscaster's dedication to serving the Filipino people through his unbiased delivery of news. On his official X, or formerly Twitter account, the president extended his condolences to Enriquez's family and loved ones. Communications Secretary Cheloy Garafil, a former journalist, also condoled with Enriquez's family. Garafil said Enriquez would be remembered for his contribution to shaping the landscape of unbiased journalism in the Philippines. Enriquez's home network, the GMA network, announced his passing with a tribute at the end of its late evening 24 Horas newscast. Enriquez was one of the anchors of GMA's flagship newscast, 24 Horas, and hosted the long-running public affairs program Investigador. He also served as president of RGMA Network Incorporated and was senior vice president and consultant for radio operations. He likewise anchored DZBB's Super Balita sa Umaga and Saksi sa Double B programs. Enriquez joined the broadcast industry in 1969. He became part of the GMA network in 1995.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. conferred Thursday the Order of National Scientist on Dr. Carmencita Padilla and the Presidential Medal of Merit on Trade Assistant Secretary Alan Gepti in a ceremony at Malacañang Palace in Manila. During the conferment rites, President Marcos thanked Padilla and Gepti for their outstanding service to the country and to the Filipino people. Awarded by virtue of Presidential Decree 1003-A, the Order of National Scientists is the highest title conferred by the Philippine President on a Filipino with outstanding achievements in science and technology. A clinical geneticist, Padilla has been cited for her pioneering work on newborn screening and the establishment of the Philippine Genome Center or PGC. Padilla's notable studies on national programs for newborn screening provided the basis for the enactment of Republic Act or RA 9288 or the Newborn Screening Act of 2004. Let's listen to a portion of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s speech at the conferment rites held at Malacañang Palace.
And that is why I ask all of those who are involved that we need to now be very conscientious and put together a program wherein we can support in whatever way that the government can on research and development. And as I think all of us know, that some of the problems are in the development side. We kept talking about what are the ways that we can do, what are the methods that we can do so that the R&D or the new knowledge, the new technologies can be brought to market, as it were, as quickly as possible. It is the problem that we have faced in all parts, especially with the new technologies of scaling. And that, I think, is an important problem, an important issue, simply because, again, it does not matter if we have these, we have this very, very clever, very, very advanced and progressive technologies, but if they are not made available to the people, then that effort has gone to waste, and we do not want to do that. The other side of that problem, and as we had identified, is that we are confident we can do it so long as it is well supported. Now, not only by the government, we spoke also about, again, in consonance with our approach, our policy, our concept of an all-of-government approach and a whole-of-society approach, that we include the private sector. Because as we all know, some of these research programs can become quite expensive and they can go on for a long time. And the government will, of course, do its part. But I think we will multiply our efforts. There will be a multiplier effect if we include all the sectors of government and also our private sector partners. And so this is what we are planning to do today. This is what we are planning to do for the future. I have asked Dr. Padilla to put together a program so that will include, well, the DTI is here, DOST and DOH specifically. We put together a program so we can support such activities as we have been speaking about in terms of R&D and of actually bringing that technology to the general populace. And it has become more important because, as Dr. Padilla was explaining to me earlier, the importance of our genome has been highlighted because, and I was surprised to learn this, that there are specific characteristics to the Filipino genome, to the Asian genome, and therefore, as I was telling her, he said, hindi lang tayo pwedeng mag-antay. Sabi, maglalabas yung Pfizer ng vaccine, maglalabas yung AstraZeneca ng vaccine. Antayin na lang natin yan. Because one size does not fit all. And that is why this effort of the genetic research and all the way through to being able to apply that specifically to the Filipino situation, to the genetics of the Filipino. And it even becomes more granular in the sense that she was explaining to me. There are some Filipinos that are, for which these medicines are effective. There's another group of Filipinos for which it is not. So that is really, the crux of the problem. And it is the nature of the health situation that we face today, not only in the Philippines, but around the world. But we must be very aware of, the specificity of the responses that we make, especially in healthcare, considering that we are built slightly differently from everyone else. And that I think is once we realize that, and once we put that as part of our thinking and our planning, then we can say that we have made the first steps towards assuring our people, assuring the Philippines that at the very least we have found new solutions, we have found new technologies, we have found new products that are specifically directed to Filipinos. So, and that's why the importance of this is the reason why today we honor our two honorees today. We recognize Dr. Padilla for her contributions and her expertise in the field of genetics, and commend her for her instrumental role in the passage of RA 9288, or the Newborn Screening Act, which has saved thousands of babies across the country from mental retardation and from death. Not only that, Dr. Padilla's work was also vital in the crafting and passage of another law, Republic Act 10747, or the Rare Diseases Act of 2016. More recently, Dr. Padilla spearheaded the establishment of the Philippine Genome Center, which played an essential role during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Philippine Genome Center was at the forefront of the country's pandemic response and provided the government and the country's policymakers with the information that we need to better understand the virus and implement measures to limit and manage its spread. Meanwhile, we also commend Assistant Secretary Gepti for being an invaluable force in the negotiations and the eventual ratification of that most important treaty, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, which has included now the Philippines into the biggest trade bloc in the world. This should open opportunities for Filipinos and the Philippine companies to export trade and services to a market exceeding 2 billion people that are within the RCEP region. Under the RCEP, the Philippines will be able to source raw materials and intermediate goods from fellow RCEP countries, process products locally, and then export those products back out to other RCEP countries at a preferential rate. Our participation in RCEP will strengthen our linkages in regional supply chains and serve as a catalyst for attracting more foreign direct investments into the country. Both Dr. Padilla and Asek Gepti exemplify what it means to be a public servant, and these awards are our form of recognition and a testament to that service. Their service goes above and beyond typical duties and responsibilities, and their achievements have created and will continue to create a positive and lasting impact.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday received Prime Minister Dritan Abazovich of Montenegro in a courtesy call at the Music Room in Malacañang Palace. The Montenegrin Prime Minister is in the country to support the Montenegro men's national basketball team, which is currently competing at the FIBA Basketball World Cup 2023, with the Philippines serving as one of the host countries. President Marcos told Abazovich during their meeting that the potential two-way exchange in tourism practices between the Philippines and Montenegro could strengthen ties and yield economic benefits for both nations. The chief executive also stressed the importance of tourism to the Philippines and the possibility for the two nations to adopt their successful strategies in developing the industry. Diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Montenegro were established on September 26, 2009, and they have been described as good and friendly ever since. The honorary consulate of Montenegro in Manila was officially opened on December 12, 2018. Present at the meeting are Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA Secretary Enrique Manalo, Presidential Advisor on Foreign Affairs and Chief of Presidential Protocol or COPP Secretary Adelio Angelito Cruz, Honorary Consul of Montenegro in the Philippines Maria Vanessa Pastor Ledesma, and other officials from the DFA Office of European Affairs.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will use the sidelines of the 43rd Association of Southeast Asian Nations or Asean Summit to meet with leaders of other countries to promote the interests of the country. In a pre-departure briefing at Malacañang, Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Daniel Espiritu said that one of the leaders that the President will have a meeting with is Vietnam Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. The two leaders will discuss strengthening strategic partnership and cooperations in rice and food security. President Marcos will also have a meeting with Timor-Leste Prime Minister Sanana Gusmao, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, and South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol. Let's listen to the statement of Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Daniel Espiritu during the pre-departure briefing at Malacañang Palace.
Okay, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., along with the leaders of the other ASEAN member states and several dialogue partners, will participate in the 43rd ASEAN Summits and related summits in Jakarta, Indonesia. This will be from 5 to 7 September 2023 at the invitation of the President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Joko Widodo, as this year's ASEAN chairman. It will be remembered that this will be the second summit this year. The first one was in Labuan Bajo in May 2023. Now, the second summit will be a follow-on to the May summit and will accelerate the momentum of the ASEAN community building process under the theme ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. It will serve as a platform for leaders to exchange views on key regional and international issues, build consensus on matters of mutual interest, and provide policy direction for the ASEAN community in the years to come. The 43rd ASEAN Summit and related summits will include meetings with several dialogue partners of ASEAN, as well as summits of ASEAN-led mechanisms, such as the ASEAN Plus 3 Summit and the East Asia Summit. The President will also attend the opening of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum upon the invitation of Indonesia. This event will serve as a platform for ASEAN to discuss infrastructure projects and programs to implement the priority areas of cooperation under the ASEAN Outlook in the Indo-Pacific with external partners and other participants. Overall, the President is expected to attend 13 leaders-level engagements, 12 of them summit sessions with other leaders. These are, let me start with September 5, Tuesday, the 43rd ASEAN Summit plenary session, the opening ceremony of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, and then the 43rd ASEAN Summit retreat session. On September 6, Wednesday, the President will attend the 26th ASEAN-China Summit, the 24th ASEAN Republic of Korea Summit, the 26th ASEAN-Japan Summit, the 26th ASEAN Plus 3 Summit, and then the ASEAN-US Summit and the ASEAN-Canada Summit. On the last day, September 7, 2023, first day, the President will attend the 20th ASEAN-India Summit, the 18th East Asia Summit, the 3rd ASEAN-Australia Summit, and the 13th ASEAN-UN Summit. In these engagements, the President will continue to uphold and promote Philippine interests in ASEAN. He will highlight our advocacies in strengthening food and energy security, harnessing the potential of the digital and creative industries and MSMEs, and addressing the impacts of climate change, among others. The President will also continue to emphasize our efforts to protect migrant workers in crisis situations, as well as combating trafficking in persons, especially with the use or abuse of technology. Other priority areas of cooperation with dialogue partners will also be discussed. Furthermore, the President will continue to promote a rules-based international order, including the 92 UNCLOS, especially in the South China Sea. The Philippines will continue to uphold and exercise freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea in accordance with international law. The leaders are expected to discuss various international issues that impact the region and beyond. These include the situation in Myanmar, the conflict in Ukraine, as well as geopolitical rivalries in the Indo-Pacific region. To date, over 90 outcome documents are being targeted to be issued, adopted, or noted during the summits. The key outcome documents would include the following: ASEAN Leaders' Declaration on Strengthening Food Security and Nutrition in Response to Crisis, and also individual joint statements on strengthening cooperation on food security between ASEAN, Australia, Canada, and India. ASEAN Guidelines on the Protection of Migrant Workers and Family Members in Crisis Situation, ASEAN Leaders' Statement on the Development of the Digital Economy Framework Agreement, and the ASEAN Joint Statement on Climate Change to the 28th session of the Conference of the Parties for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, among others. The 43rd Summit and related summits will conclude on 7 September 2023 with a handover ceremony of the ASEAN chairmanship from Indonesia to the Lao People's Democratic Republic.
Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Daniel Espiritu.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday presided over the Second National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LCAC, Executive Committee meeting. In a press briefing after the meeting, Executive Director and Head of the NTF-ELCAC, Ernesto Torres Jr., discussed what the Executive Committee has tackled during their meeting. Executive Director Torres said that they have five agendas, rather that there are five agendas that were discussed, which includes the oath-taking of newly designated cabinet officer for regional development and security, the inclusion of 11 other agencies in the executive committee, inclusion of different departments, bureaus, and agencies in the different clusters of NTF-ELCAC, among others.
Tuesday, we have 5 agenda items that were tackled this afternoon, presided by the first Executive Secretary during the first part, and then during the second part by the President himself. The first agenda item was the oath-taking of the CORDS, the newly designated Cabinet Officer for Regional Development and Security. This is a position that would harmonize the functions and contributions of the Regional Development Council and the Regional Peace and Order Council. So, related to that first agenda, of course, is the decision to recommend a replacement for Secretary Toots Ople, who unfortunately passed away just recently as the course of Joint Regional Task Force NCR. So we have now, and the Executive Committee agreed and approved the designation of no less than the Secretary of TESDA, Secretary Suharto Mangudadatu. That's the first agenda. The second agenda is the inclusion of 11 other agencies in the Executive Committee. And I'm referring to the following: the DICT, or Department of Information and Communications Technology, that's one. Second is the DOLE. Then the Department of Transportation, Department of Tourism, Department of Energy, the Secretary of the DTI, Secretary of the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, 8, the Department of Foreign Affairs, 9, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, 10, Department of Health, and 11, the Department of Migrant Workers. So as per EO 70, just for the our friends in the media would have a better perspective, originally it has 21 member agencies. So with the inclusion of the 11 other secretaries of the different members that I have mentioned, so it would bring it to 32 regular members from the different departments. But another agenda was tackled because in the organization of the NTF-ELCAC, there are 2 private representatives that are allowed or authorized to be a member in the organization. So these positions were never filled up since the establishment of NTF-ELCAC. So just like I mentioned a while ago, we need to review how we do things, and we find it necessary that at this point in our campaign, it is necessary that we have 2 private representatives as member agencies. So the EXICOM agreed to have 1 from the religious sector, and we have now the CBCP, represented by the Episcopal Commission on Public Affairs, particularly by Bishop Reynaldo Evangelista, and his alternate is Father Jerome Siciliano, who was physically present during the meeting. So also, aside from CBCP membership, we are working on a business sector representative to fill up the other slot for private representative in the NTF organization. So another agenda is inclusion of some departments, bureaus, and agencies in the different clusters of NTF-LCAC. So we all know that we have 12 different clusters, so certain departments, bureaus, and agencies were added to that. So meaning, nag-expand yung membership ng LCAC by clusters and sa national membership. And the last agenda that the executive committee tackled is the evolution of the halfway houses for the FRs into Unity Peace and Development Centers or simply Peace Centers. So if you recall, yung halfway houses natin are facilities where our surrenderers, no, are de-radicalized, they are trained for them to be prepared for reintegration back to mainstream society. So also we expanded with our recommendation for it to evolve into peace centers. It would expand its functions with the impending proclamation of amnesty. It may serve also as a processing center for those who would wish to go back to the folds of the law and subsequently avail of the amnesty program that would be offered to them. So it will also be a facility for addressing the different concerns of the FRs to include the processing of the ECLIP or Enhanced Comprehensive Local Integration Program and implementation also of the Task Force Balik Loob program, strengthening of their FR organization and associations, strengthening of people's organization, and all the other concerns that would sustain our programs in really taking care of our FRs so that they could really be mainstream and given the opportunity to be reintegrated back to our society. So those were the 5 items that were tackled this afternoon. In addition to that, we gave the courts an orientation briefing, gave them an update on where we are now in our campaign in counterinsurgency, so that when the courts, as representative of our president in all the 17 regions in our country, we would be singing one tune. We would be marching with the same cadence towards accomplishing our mission of really ending local communist armed conflict. So that, in a nutshell, is what transpired during the executive committee meeting this afternoon. Thank you.
NTF-LCAC Executive Director Ernesto Torres Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has approved the recommendation to impose mandated price ceilings on rice in the whole country in light of the surge in its retail prices. Under Executive Order or EO 39, inked by the President on Thursday and made available on Friday, the mandated price ceiling for regular milled rice is 41 pesos per kilogram, while the mandated price cap for well-milled rice is 45 pesos per kilogram. As of August 28th, the Department of Agriculture, or DA, reported that the price per kilogram of local regular milled rice in markets in Metro Manila ranged from 42 to 55 pesos, while local well-milled rice stood at 48 to 56 pesos. The joint recommendation of the DA and the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, to impose a rice price ceiling aims to ensure that the staple is reasonably priced and conveniently accessible to Filipinos. The DA and the DTI's recommendation stemmed from the current increase in retail prices of rice in the country, which resulted in a considerable economic strain on Filipinos, particularly the underprivileged and marginalized. EO 39 directs the DTI and the DA to ensure the strict implementation of the mandated price ceilings, monitor and investigate abnormal price movements of rice in the market, and provide assistance to affected retailers with the help of the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG. It also mandates the Bureau of Customs or BOC to intensify its ongoing inspections and raids of rice warehouses to combat hoarding and illegal importation of rice in the country, and facilitate the confiscation, seizure, or forfeiture of smuggled rice as may be warranted by law. The DA is also instructed to share with the BOC relevant information such as the inventory of rice stocks, the list of accredited rice importers, and the location of rice warehouses. EO 39 orders the Philippine Competition Commission, in coordination with the DA and the DTI, to implement measures against cartels or those abusing their dominant position in the market to ensure fair market competition and uphold consumer welfare and protection. Last week, the BOC raided and closed 3 warehouses in Balagtas, Bulacan Province, which stored alleged imported rice worth more than 500 million pesos. The National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, also reported that the rice inflation rate increased from 1% in January of 2022 to 4.2% in July this year. The NEDA attributed the high rice inflation rate to rising demand and tight supply due to several factors, including efforts of other countries to buffer their supply in anticipation of El Niño and other international developments. Section 7 of Republic Act 7581, or the Price Act, authorizes the President, upon the recommendation of the implementing agency or the Price Coordinating Council, to impose a price ceiling on any basic necessity or price commodity in compliance with the conditions set by the law.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, in time for the nation's observance of the National Peace Consciousness Month, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Friday officially declared the Palawan Island and the city of Puerto Princesa as insurgency-free in a program during his visit to the city. This follows the joint declaration initially made by the Palawan Provincial Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or PTF-LCAC, and the Provincial Peace and Order Council, or PPOC, in 2022. During the program, President Marcos led the banging of the peace gong, symbolizing the start of the National Peace Consciousness Month. The event's theme, Kapayapaan ng Bawat Mamamayan, highlights the shared vision of all Filipinos for a peaceful and prosperous country, as well as the collective responsibility in protecting peace. Let's listen to a portion of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s speech in Puerto Princesa, Palawan.
It brings me a great joy to be able to be with you to preside over the pronouncement of Palawan as an insurgency-free province and to lead the opening ceremony of this year's National Peace Consciousness Month. I cannot think of a better way to open the celebration, the commemoration of the National Peace Consciousness Month, than to also, at the same time, be able to announce and to declare Palawan Island as insurgency-free. I recognize, of course, the collaborative and inclusive efforts of the regional and provincial task force, of the task force ELCAC, Provincial Peace and Order Council, its partner agencies, and the people of the province for the successful implementation of the whole-of-nation approach to end local communist armed conflict. This has led to the achievement of this insurgency-free status for Palawan Island. The milestone that we celebrate today epitomizes the commitment that you have put to end the decades-long insurgency in the area through the provision of national reintegration programs for former rebels and promotion of the island's peace and security.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, we would like to invite everyone to come and visit our Facebook page at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You will be able to hear and view our Filipino and English programs, including news updates here in the Philippines. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.